Welcome to the Wine Zone. I'm Conrad Edgebeck and this is Pro and Con. Here on his first visit to Toronto, my guest today is Grant Edmonds. He's a head winemaker at Sileni Wines of New Zealand, which produces, believe it or not, 400,000 cases of Primo juice. You do Primo juice, right?
Of course.
Okay. In Marlborough and Hawke's Bay, and that's what we're going to talk about today, a little bit about Hawke's Bay. Sileni exports 95% of its wines to markets in Japan, China, the US, and many others, and some are way down the list to Canada. So that's one of the reasons Grant's here, is to introduce Sileni wines to Canada. Welcome to Toronto, Grant.
Thank you very much.
Sure. Now, the dinner that we enjoyed last night at Wood's Restaurant was absolutely terrific.
It was.
It was.
Food.
You're quite a food person.
I do like my food.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. In fact, I think that you're no more than a food person. You're a photography person.
I am. How did you know that?
Well, because you asked me last night to take pictures of all the dishes, and I did it. So tell me, how do you feel about food paparazzi, like snapping away in the middle of a restaurant?
It's quite interesting. There's one of the other winemakers at Sileni he's a big foodie. So every time I travel, I take photos of all the food. He gets very upset, and he describes it as food porn. I'm not quite sure why, but he gets really upset because I send back photos of all this great stuff that I eat.
So it's more jealousy than anything else?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I bet. Now, you started your career as chief winemaker for Villa Maria Group.
I didn't start as chief winemaker, but that's
well. You started your winemaking career with the Villa Maria Group,
yes,
and then ended up as chief winemaker.
Yes.
Your boss, Sir George Fiston, sat on this very couch a few years ago. What did you learn from him?
A lot. He's been a great mentor to a lot of New Zealand winemakers. Villa Maria's turned over a lot of people who have gone on and done lots of other interesting things in the industry in New Zealand. One of the main things that he taught me was it's all about the consumer. When you look at the wine, don't think about what you want to drink, think about what the consumer wants to drink. And I think that's the message I took away from 8.5 years at Villa Maria.
That's right. That's right. We are servants, not cult leaders.
Absolutely.
Now, you also worked at Chateau Pavie, which is in Bordeaux. Right?
Correct.
1990.
1990.
So, have you ever tasted a wine from New Zealand as good as Chateau Pavie?
I think the wines from New Zealand are slightly different in style. Mm-hmm. Are they as good? That's a subjective question. I think some of the wines there are as good, but again, slightly different in style.
Sure.
Old
sure.
world, new world.
And that's something I want to talk about. Most people think about New Zealand, you think about Marlborough and Sauvignon Blanc, which we have. There's a wonderful Sileni Sauvignon Blanc. This is the one that's the straights. That's one of your upscale ones. Chardonnays. People always think of white wines, but we're tasting today a Pinot Noir from Hawke's Bay, right? Which seems counterintuitive because most of the Pinot Noir is done in Otago. Right, and Hawke's Bay is one of the hotter regions.
That's right.
Right, so I'm thinking, is that obviously there's going to be stylistic differences between Otago and what you do.
There are, yes.
So if I was participating in a blind tasting of Pinot Noirs, how would I? Is there a specific nuance within your Pinot Noir from Hawke's Bay that I could focus on and say, that's probably from Hawke's Bay because, over to you.
I think in terms of fruit flavours, yes, we're not exactly warmer, but we have a longer growing season than Central Otago. So that changes the fruit flavours slightly. And I would say we have probably more of the dark plum character, if you like, coming through, along with the more typical black cherry. That's a development from a longer overall growing season.
That's fascinating because my sense is that the growing season down there is similar to yours, just that they're so much further south and therefore they'd be so much cooler. And that the difference would be temperature, not length of season, because it's just, you know, New Zealand is small and sort of the length of the season, the width of the island, etc.
They're 1,000 kilometres, almost 1,000 kilometres further south than we are.
Which is why I was focusing on temperature.
So, but that makes a huge difference to the length of season as well.
Okay, yeah. Like from here in Sudbury. Sudbury, even further north than that, here to Kapuskasing.
Wherever that is.
Wherever that is. That's, you know, just past Kapuskasing is a little town called Moonbeam. And we drive north out of Moonbeam, you go about 10 kilometers, and then just the road ends forest. After that, it's like, goodbye, it's north.
Okay, so that's a lot.
We the north.
It's not quite like that in Central Otago, but they're pretty much down the bottom end of the South Island.
Okay.
They're also surrounded by mountains, so they're the only place in New Zealand that you would suggest has something remotely approaching a continental climate. Very dry, very cold winters, hot summers, but a very short summer growing period.
Okay, let's talk more about Hawke's Bay. Talk to me about the season in Hawke's Bay. What are the highs and lows? What are the diurnal temperatures? What's the summer-winter difference?
Average temperature in summer where we are, probably somewhere around 10 to 12 degrees centigrade. So relatively warm, I guess.
That's warm?
Well, that's an average temperature.
Okay.
So, you know, daytime temperature, we're quite often 15, 18 degrees.
Right.
In midwinter.
In midwinter. I thought you were talking about summer for a second. Okay.
No, that's midwinter. We don't get
winter,
any snow.
10 to 12 degrees.
We don't get any snow in Hawke's Bay, apart from on the mountains, but actually on the plains where most of the vines are grown.
Right.
We've never seen snow.
And the summer highs?
Summer highs, possibly up to 40 degrees, but that's rare.
Yeah, that would be rare, but average summer highs?
Average summer highs would be high 20s.
High 27, 26, 25, 29?
Yeah, probably anywhere between 25 and 30.
Right.
It would take a little bit.
Okay, so how many days in a summer would you have 30 plus? On average?
On average, we'd probably hit that maybe 5 to 10 times per summer.
Right. Because when I taste the wine, I get both the power and the richness and the ripeness of a wine from a slightly warmer clime, and at the same time I get the acidity that tells me that you have cool evenings and keeps it bright. But I have another question about the long season, because this one applies, I guess, in many places. At the end of the season, do you achieve your highest Brix levels, or does the grape achieve a Brix level and then maintain that while you continue phenolic development?
No, pretty much harvest is based on where those Brix levels get to, and because it's been a relatively long growing season, then the phenolic ripeness is coming to fruition at about that same point.
Right. So I'm understanding now, because the season is really so moderate that ripening is slow, very slow, and just when it finally peaks, that's when you pick it at the end of the season.
That's exactly how.
Whereas here, what we often get is these incredible high temperatures midsummer, and the Brix levels shoot up, and they're almost the wines are ripe, alcoholically speaking, but not phenolically.
Yeah, no, that's one of the huge advantages, I think, for us as a grape growing region is that although Hawke's Bay is at a latitude of 39 degrees, so roughly the same as Madrid in the northern hemisphere, and Madrid is a hot place.
Right, but those kind of comparatives are completely irrelevant to me because of the nature of where you are, surrounded by ocean.
But that's exactly my point. In a continental climate, you have a short growing season with a high peak temperature that will stay high for 3 or 4 weeks. Whereas with us, we have a long growing season and a much lower peak temperature.
The earth cannot retain the heat overnight because it loses it every night. Because you're so narrow, the winds come, take the heat away, boom. You have to do it every day, and slowly it builds to a peak.
Yeah.
That's That's fascinating. The other thing I wanted to say about this Pinot Noir, and this particular one is called the Plateau. The Plateau is slightly higher than your regular cellar selection Pinot Noir. It's higher in elevation.
In terms of the wine quality?
The grape, the location of the grapes.
No, the same location.
Okay.
So we have two main vineyard areas within Hawke's Bay. The Plateau is one of our vineyards, which is an old gravel river terrace. It's inland, slightly higher altitude, and therefore a little bit cooler than the plain.
So irrigation is critical.
Absolutely.
You can't grow without irrigating.
The gravels are very free draining.
In fact, you rather than irrigating, do you fertigate?
We fertigate rarely. It's primarily irrigation, but we do add
At times.
fertilizer when required.
Right. Okay. You got it. The thing's got to eat something.
Well, that's exactly it.
So the thing that I notice about this is that in a blind tasting, I would say this is not Otago, because Otago has a unique character. This is more, I would say, more international or more Burgundian than what I get from Otago.
I couldn't agree more. Yeah, and that's pretty much the style that we are trying to do, is something more Burgundian in style. We don't want to get too over extractive. We don't throw too much new oak at it. We're looking for concentrated fruit and the expression of that fruit.
Right. And this one strikes me as one that's going to develop very nicely over several hours, and it's one of those that you regret because you got to the bottom of the bottle and just starting to open up, then really get into its guts.
Yeah, that's why we make magnums, because you get twice as much in the bottle.
And the problem is you need twice as many people to drink them, and then they go just as fast. So I wanted to ask you about your photography. What do you like to shoot? Just food?
No, food's something I do really just to wind up the other people that don't get to travel as much as I do. Photography in general, I'm a landscape photographer, I guess.
Landscape. So you got to get all the trees going straight up. You got to get the right angles. Some no round the trees on the edges of the picture.
Yeah, all of that sort of stuff. It's something that gives you a complete break. There's no relationship to winemaking whatsoever, and it just clears your mind. You think about other things.
Allows you to be absolutely a child again. Imagining and just seeing and taking everything in. I'm a photographer myself, so yeah. I love that. It's a freedom.
Some would say I've never actually passed that stage in my development. So.
Good. Please don't, because I think it even comes out in the wines. The wines are jovial and they're pleasant. Thank you so much for coming in. Welcome to Toronto. Welcome to Canada, and I hope to see you again soon.
Thank you very much.
Cheerio. And do come back and watch more episodes of Pro and Con. You can subscribe to the channel. There's a little button down there somewhere you can push on, and we'll have many more interesting wine professionals here as guests. Till the next time, bye-bye.